All right. Okay, I can see it. Hey, everybody. How's it going, fellow reefers? As expected, with a live stream premiere, it wouldn't be a premiere without a lot of snafus. The good news is that we're live, and you're in the very first Average Joe's Reef premiere stream. The bad news is our spotlight reefer is not in attendance. So fortunately, Rob doesn't roll without a plan B. Plan B is the guest panelist, Anthony Schofield from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, who is going to be a panelist, is going to sub in for the spotlight reefer. Anthony has some fantastic reef tanks, so we're going to roll with Anthony today. Paul, unfortunately, suffered a major power outage in his area and has been without power for a couple days. I'm to understand he's lost some fish, and he's barely has enough charge on his phone to make the stream. So let's thoughts and prayers with Paul. We hope he makes it through this tough time. But this is going to make for a good topic today. What's your backup power plan? Do you have one? And what happens when power goes out? So it's a great reminder. Anthony can speak to this as well. So without further ado, I thank everybody here for joining the live stream today. I super appreciate your participation. Obviously, this couldn't be a success. When you tell a story, you need an audience. And this is going to be a live stream. As it evolves down the road, we're going to even invite audience members from the live chat into the live stream. Not today, but look forward to that in the future months. If you're chatting along and having a good time and you feel like you want to join in a conversation, we're going to invite you in, and you can go live with the rest of us, as well as the previous reefer from the former Spotlight Reef has the option to come back as a guest panelist and join in the chat should they not be able to make it. We're going to take applications and you can join in. The whole point of this stream is collaboration, positivity, and learning. So I want to get as many people on the stream in front of other people so we can learn about each other. We can all be successful in this hobby in isolation, but when we collaborate, it just makes your success that much greater. And that's really what this stream is all about. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today, and this is Anthony. Hi,
Hey,
Anthony. You want to say a few words about yourself?
a few words. Oh, about myself. My name's Anthony. Hello, everyone. I'm in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm not in the tropics, although it looks very sunny where I'm at. This is just my balcony, and it's a beautiful day. So I'll be joining you from the outdoors today. Plus, it's early. I'm a night shifter. Rob has me up super early to do this live stream with y'all, which I think is super fun. But my tank lights aren't even on yet, so I can't even like show you that kind of fun stuff.
No, that's all fine and good. So yeah, I really appreciate again everybody showing up. Like and subscribe to my channel if you think we even have a shot and a prayer at making this worthwhile. I welcome your input along the way. After the live stream is over, look to the descriptions. I'll have Anthony's contact information. I'll still have Paul's contact information. Maybe reach out, see if he's okay after the live stream. And then as well, I'm going to be posting a submission form. So if you're interested in appearing on Average Joe's Reef and being a spotlight reefer, there's just a simple canvas that you fill out just to learn a little bit more about you and what you're about. And we're gonna figure it out. We've got guests lined up for July and August already, so we'll be looking out to September. So it's not like you have to be prepared to roll right away. We've got some time to get things rolling and whatnot. So Anthony, basically we're gonna roll through some questions, and Anthony's gonna answer them on the fly since he didn't have any time to prepare. But I know he's a good sport.
Please
How'd you
bring
get
it on.
started? How'd you get started in the reefing hobby?
Okay, so reefing hobby. Ah, man, it's been like over probably 10 years ago. Some of you all might remember Dr. Foster and Smith, the catalogs that had like, fish, and they had one for cats, dogs, and all of that. Anyway, somewhere along the lines, I got a hold of one of those years and years and years ago, and thought it was amazing, like one of the saltwater aquarium ones. And that was when like T5s and metal halides were it still, like, I mean, so quite a while ago compared to some people. So I wanted to get in like way back when, right? But at that time in my life, money and space and all of that, it just kind of wasn't feasible. So I kind of put it on the shelf for a long, long time. And then it was about 5 years ago, I found myself in a different place in life and kind of really started to reconsider what it would look like to have a reef tank, like for real. And as I got back into it, I found out Dr. Foster and Smith wasn't a thing anymore. They were now known as, I guess, Live Aquaria. That's who took that over. And yeah, that's kind of when I started to look at it full on, and a lot had changed. LEDs were a thing now, and lots of different things like that. So I just kind of started to do a lot more research. I had books from before that I had read and even took notes. I had a journal I kept for all the notes and what I wanted for a setup and the prices all of this thing would cost. And so I got all that stuff back out and started to do some research and looking, and I just decided, yeah, time is now. So I got in and I guess, yeah, started with all of that.
So how
So
was
that
that
was
initial
about,
transition from what you remembered everything to when you jump back in, like with the technology shifts? LEDs not being a thing, and then LEDs
it was,
being a
it was
thing.
just super interesting because I didn't really know much about it early on other than what I'd read, the equipment you needed, the books that I'd read about keeping, marine environments in a glass box and all of that played in. And then when I came back to actually like get into it and saw like LEDs were like a new way to light things and just the different equipment that's available now, I guess, was just, yeah, it was interesting. It was just kind of like, oh wow, there's a lot more options, but also at the same time it kind of seemed to make it almost more complicated because there was so many more options with how to run one. And there was, as I had researched and looked more, there was no like right way, which we all divert to. There's many ways to reef, which it's true. But at the same time, for a beginner, that can make it very complicated because like you want to do it right. You want to keep these animals alive, and then you look for like the right way. And there's like 800 different right ways and 800 wrong ways. So that was kind of interesting and confusing.
I wonder how many people out there can identify with that. I had previous reefing experience for about 5 years, and then I took a 15-year break. And it was a daunting, confusing thing for me because LEDs wasn't a thing, and I just didn't know where to start. And unfortunately, I went with the height machine.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of lights, got a lot of cool LED lights that I no longer use. But it was a learning curve for sure. And I wish I had taken the time to get to know some reefers and get some honest, practical experience, right? Rather than taking my cues from the people who sold the lights.
Yeah.
I think I would have been better served of getting to know some reefers ahead of time. So, like, if you're just in the beginning of your journey, definitely that's something to do is jump on the forums and get to know somebody personally.
Yeah, for sure. If you can find somebody like in your area, even that'll, take some time to answer questions, walk you through a few things. I mean, even come over and see your system. I guess I think if somebody if you can see what's going on and put your eyes on it, you can help somebody obviously better than just, through word of mouth. But I had a guy that lives near me. I'm in Wisconsin, so Hudson, Wisconsin, which is about 45 minutes from my location. Had a live fish store there. And so that was the closest one to me. And at that time, 5 years ago, five-ish, you could still buy actual live rock from a fish store. I mean, that seems like a short amount of time, like 4 or 5 years ago. Now you can't even really do that. It seems super hard. But anyway, he had live rock and I was setting up a tank. So I went there and bought my live rock, and he was super nice, super helpful. And that's kind of how I got my start. He took the time to answer a lot of my questions and, give me a little encouragement, walk me through some things, help me out with some coral purchases at, a fair price to, as a new, beginner hobbyist.
Does anybody in the chat?
Are you there? Hello? Can you hear me? Uh-oh. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Well, I apologize while Anthony reconnects.
Say something.
There we go.
Say something.
We got you back, buddy.
Okay. What? How long was I talking before you lost me?
About 10, 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I don't know what happened. Maybe I covered the mic. So anyway, I had a guy at a live fish store. He was the owner operator that helped me out, got me on my way, and actually we've become very good friends to where we spend time together outside of him working and me visiting the shop. And so it's been a cool experience to gain friendships that way through, the reefing hobby. And that's actually how I met Rob, all you guys watching. He was a fellow reefer. We met on Reef to Reef. We're in the same area, and now, we hang out, we do grill outs, we chit chat, and do reef stuff together. So it's always good to have that community, and especially when, you got tank issues, you need to bounce some stuff off somebody else, different experiences. It all can be very helpful.
Yeah, that's why I always champion collaboration and partnerships and just friendships and positivity. Get to know the local reefers in your area, and they can quickly become your best friends, and you'll find that you have commonalities, beyond reefing alone. But most importantly, when you go on vacation, you have a tank sitter.
Yeah. Hey, you beat me. I was gonna say that you're also gonna need a tank sitter because you're gonna want to go on vacation sometime.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So without further ado, I've got a lot more questions for Anthony. Then we'll spin off into some different topics of conversation. But as we go along here, feel free to jump out and ask Anthony any questions or myself. We're not sitting up here on the podium because we're reefing experts. We're just sitting up here because we're passionate about reefing. So you're gonna if you want to stump the chumps are gonna be stumped all day long. We're gonna I ask questions daily to learn, so this is what we're here to learn together. But so we're not
Right.
here to
As I like
say that we're the
as
experts.
I like to say, let's learn together.
Right. All right, so this might look a little funky. There we go. All right, apologize for the transitions here. I totally expected Paul to be here, but we're just gonna roll with this. All right, so this is Anthony's tank. So Anthony, what style of reefing tank or tanks do you have? Because I think you suffer MTS, right?
Multiple tank syndrome?
Correct.
Yes, I do suffer from MTS. I still have multiple, so two. At one point, I had three, and yeah. So anyway, I do have two, but my style of reefing would be, I'd say, mixed reef. My other problem with reefing is I want to own like one of everything because it's all just super freaking amazing. So I have a problem where I want to own anemones with acropora in the same tank at the same time. Mixed reef, I want it all. So that runs me into problems sometimes, but I like the challenge. And honestly, I just love the beauty of it all together, even though sometimes that means, some corals get stung, some don't, some grow better than others. Yeah, so I'm definitely mixed reef. I've tried like a kind of singular species, like Acropora tank, or say this other tank with all my clownfish and anemones. Tried to be just anemones, but I mean that didn't last long until I had like everything else in there with the anemones. So mixed reef, that's where I'm at.
So the tank that we're looking at right now with the filefish, tell us a little
Oh,
bit
with
about
my
that.
that's my nano tank. That's a little long-nosed hawkfish actually, and I have a clownfish in there.
How big is the tank?
But it's 10 gallons. It officially holds probably like about 8, with the rock, sand, coral, all that in there. But this, yeah, it's a small 10-gallon tank. It's super simple, probably the simplest thing I've ever set up. And actually, I love it. It's like the easiest tank to maintain. For me, it has just a hang on back filter, heater. I use an auto top off with Kalkwasser and one Powerhead, and I have a simple light over the top of it, just a single source light. And yeah, super simple. I do weekly water changes on it just because I'm a weekly water change guy. That's how I've always been.
Yeah, you can see just right there as it stands. One power head looks like an MP10, right? And then
Yep.
what kind of brand is that hang on the back filter?
It's a Aquamax. I think it's one of their maybe newer line hang on back filters. I had experience with Aquamax is skimmers. I have a couple of those. I really like them. They're just design, construction, all of that. So I went with this Aquamax hang on back, and I'm really, really satisfied. It's a really nice unit. They make bigger ones for bigger tanks. So if somebody's looking for hang on back, I would suggest maybe looking at the Aquamax for a potential, use. But it's nice. Yeah, and it's an MP10. You wouldn't need an MP10. I just had extra equipment. This was from a breakdown of I had another 40-gallon tank that some of this equipment was from, and some of the coral and rock. So it was kind of just a transfer.
So Brandon Scott Art has a question. He says, I'm going on vacation in a few weeks. Any advice on tank automation for those times you are away for a week at a time? 150-gallon mixed reef, hydros control, pH, chasing calculus system.
So I think Rob would probably know a little bit more about automation because he automates and leaves for weeks at a time. What do you think, Rob, on leaving for a week at a time?
Yeah, I have a 180-gallon mixed reef tank, and it. One second here.
Is this
It
too
says I'm
loud out
playing
here?
back. Yeah.
Sorry,
So I have a
folks.
180 mixed gallon reef tank, and I leave for work for 2 weeks at a time typically. And what I found is crucial to my success, and I've been traveling for the whole time that I've had my tank. Usually about 3 or 4 times a year, I'm gone for 2 weeks at a crack. So obviously, having an automated ATO you can trust with, the maximum duration that you're going to be gone. So you got to figure out, hey, what's the most my tank evaporates in the time that I'm gone. So if it's 1.5 gallons a day and you're gone for 10 days, obviously you're going to have 11 gallons, and then, with a safety buffer. Depends on kind of the fish you have. If are they all going to eat frozen? Are you feeding pellets, flakes? You can automate pellets and flakes with a fish feeder, but you can't with frozen. So unfortunately, I'm dependent on a fish feeder because there's probably about 25% of my fish won't take to dry foods, and the others will. So I just primarily feed frozen. And I'm also on the slurry, and that's been as stable as they come. So I just fill up an Old Tropic Marin bucket, and I've got a month's worth of slurry dosing there. So other than that, if you're on filter socks, again, you're dependent upon somebody. I've employed filter rolls because I travel alone, and that is been a game changer for me. If I was at home, I've been thinking about yanking my filter rollers out of the sump and just running socks around at home, and then throwing the filter rollers in when I travel, just to save on money. Anthony, Peter wants to know if you're running saturated calc.
Peter, I am not running, well, I'm not running kelp slurry like the milk that a lot of these guys are at this point. I'm running 100% saturated kelp wasser on a doser that just drips in the tank, I don't know, like 10 in the morning to midnight. So I don't run it at night. I know some people have done the night running for the pH. I haven't experimented with that. I'm still on the daytime. But anyway, yeah, I'm just running 100% solution. So whatever gallonage I mix up, I do the calc to make it 100%, and then I just drip that in. But honestly, now that the windows have opened here in Wisconsin, because it's finally summer, mid-June, finally summer, I'm getting a lot more fresh air, so pH, and my consumption is what I'm trying to say. My elk consumption has been greatly impacted, where it's consuming a lot. And actually, as of yesterday, I was like, ooh, I might need to think about doing the milk because I'm not really keeping up with the 100% saturated solution with the auto top off. I could dose more of the solution, but then I'm dosing more than the evaporation rate. So you just get into weird stuff like that. But that was a long answer for a short answer of.
Well, yeah, you can kind of see the bucket to the lower right behind your tank,
Here,
Nano Tank there. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
maybe. So here, if I get down here, you see that jug, Peter? That's what I got my calc solution in. And I just use a Versa doser. You can use, I think, a Kmar. I use a Versa or a Kmar because they're peristaltic, I think. That means they can run continuous at a low rate, and you get a nice drip instead of dosing chunks at a time, if that makes sense. So that's how I'm running. In the Nano, I'm still just using calc in the ATO. I've always been a calc in the ATO guy, and then if that can't keep up or whatever, I've gone to this drip with the doser, which I think is amazing.
That out later.
What?
I'm gonna have to censor that later. Calc in the ATO.
What the?
No, that's
calc in the ATO. I know. Yeah, there's people that say friends don't let friends use. But hey, there's merit to that.
I've done it. I've done it.
But that's true, because here's the thing: any of that you're watching, calc in the ATO is great until it's not great. When you have an ATO issue and it dumps all of that in your tank, and your tank precipitates, like your glass turns white, like it looks milky white, and you can't see a darn thing in your tank, and things die. I've had that happen a few times. So yeah, there's that too.
My best lesson is when it's wintertime and your tank is evaporating like crazy, and you're dumping so much calc wash in your tank that you're turning your sand bed into a parking lot.
That too, yeah. And that's the tricky part I always found with calc in the ATO. I love it, but come winter and summer, I always would have to excuse me, really readjust the dosage of kelp in the ATO, you know what I mean, because of evaporation. So I really had to pay attention for season change and say, now I need to use less kelp in the ATO because it's not evaporating as much, or more kelp because it's evaporating less, like to make up the difference. So that can get kind of tedious and, you know, make things a little weird if you're not like, I don't know, I'm kind of like all about it, like reefing, like in testing, like that's just, I don't know, I'm a nerd. Rob knows that. I'm a nerd for this stuff. So for me, it's not a big deal, but for some of you, you know, you all out there that, you know, maybe have a little hands-off approach, it might not be the best route either. Doser on a doser, like I've changed. I've already told Rob this a few times, like it's a game changer for me. I love it. I wish I would have done it sooner, truthfully.
So Reef Keeper asked Anthony, I noticed those Fido tanks
Yeah.
behind you. Are you happy with them? Been thinking about ordering some for myself. So put a pin on that, Reef Keeper. We're going to come back to that question. I wanted to burn through Anthony's other tank. We'll get through those. And then Anthony's got a few other things going on that's pretty cool that I'm learning things from Anthony on that too. So keep in part. So we'll put a pin in that and we'll come right back to it.
We'll get back to you, CC Reef Keeper.
Yeah, so that's your 10-gallon Nano, no sump, a bucket of calc
no
ATO water,
nothing,
and it looks like a fantastic tank.
Well, it's dark now, but yeah, you can see I just run a simple Kessel. Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So now we're rolling on your 40 there, and SpongeBob is doing the tour here.
Yes, he is. Because Anthony, in his half-awake state, recording this video, somehow managed to get his finger in there. And so it was a new fish, a finger fish. But Rob did a great job. Yes, stickers are beautiful. Plus, SpongeBob is amazing in your home aquaria. I kind of actually want one like to put in the tank.
So talk to us a little bit about your 40-gallon setup. It's a 40 breeder.
Okay, it is. It's a 40 breeder. It's just a Aqueon special, like the $1 gallon type thing from Petco. So nothing fancy there. I run a lot of Powerheads on it, kind of because I believe flow is a big deal. I think it's a bigger deal than most of us give credit for. So I run a few Powerheads. I run a sump on this with my own. I don't have an overflow per se. The tank itself is a 40 Aqueon breeder tank, right? And whoever had it before me, like installed a all-in-one type system in the back. So it's a peninsula style, like all-in-one kind of retrofit. And so I've kind of made it my own where I pull a siphon out of the all-in-one to a sump below, and then it pumps it back up. And so it's kind of a do-it-yourself type setup, the way I have it running. But
so that's interesting. So you've got basically an used tank, which is very cool. Let me pull this back here. And you've kind of done a home DIY peninsula type setup.
Pretty much, yeah.
How's the siphon worked on that?
Well, it's truly a, let's see if I can give you a little, it's just truly a straight siphon. So if you see here, let's see. So you can see this pipe here is like this back area is like somebody built in an all-in-one where you could just have a pump in here and it would overflow through this and pump it back in like your typical all-in-one. But I took this and just have a siphon tube that pulls a real siphon. It's just siphoning it out of the tank down to the sump, and then it gets pumped up back here. So if you can see, there we go. That's the sump down below. So yeah, it's just it's like a true siphon. So the truth is, it's I do kind of play with fire. I do have fail safes to make it work, but the truth is, like, I do play with a little bit of fire, because if I lose that siphon, then all the water from the sump gets pumped back up into the tank and none flows back down. but I've made sure that there's enough room in the tank up top to where if that were to happen, I wouldn't overflow. But I have had to learn a few lessons through that.
Have you ever watered your downstairs neighbor's plants?
Yes, I've watered the downstairs neighbor's plants a few times in my learning experience of setting this kind of DIY sump with overflow. Half my problem before was I had a completely different sump below. Like I tried to do something kind of sneaky and fancy when I first set this up with a tiny refugium, and it worked, but it was a mess because I flooded my tank way too many times and made a mess on the floor and the neighbors below. And yeah, anyways, I've revamped a ton of things, and so I have more fail safes, and it's been running well now for quite some time. I think I'm in a good place, but
Nice. And so what kind of equipment are you running in the sump on that 40 breeder?
I have a skimmer that is not very large. It's really, I mean, it skims, but it's not like oversized to like where I'm putting a lot of pressure on it to do a big job. But it's just in there. I use filter socks. I just have, I guess, one filter sock that flows into from the display. I have a Fido refugium. I use a Powerhead down there, not to tumble, but just to keep circulation. But yeah, I have a big, I guess, large Fido refugium. So I use Fido as my main kind of source of export for nutrients. I also have live rock down there in the refugium and some of that Florida mud. I got some mud that I keep down there. And then heater and your typical, I use a reactor as well that gets down there with carbon and a little bit of GFO, and then my return pump.
So with all the livestock in that tank, because for a 40 breeder, I mean it's pretty densely populated. You've got a fair amount of fish in there, which I think is fantastic.
I have 14 fish. I have 14 fish in this 40 breeder.
Kind of like a clown harem, right?
It is. I have 12 clownfish, 3 different species. I know some of you may gasp at that. That's definitely probably not recommended by anybody that I've come across, but I take calculated risks.
At the top. Yeah.
Yeah, those are Heractis magnifica mag anemones. I have a couple of those. I have a couple different species, not species, colors of bubble tip anemones. I don't know. They all have names, but so I have those, and I have 1 rock flower. So I have a handful of different anemones, and then 3 different species of clownfish. The kind of Clarky breed with the spot cinctus, ocellaris, and maroon, lightning maroons. And then I have a wrasse and a smallish yellow tang as well. So it's kind of a big group, but
yeah, you got some fantastic looking clownfish. So with all those fish, what are your nutrients typically running? Are you having a nutrient export issue? Are you running high, low?
I would say that I'm, I guess, average. What I would consider your typical nutrient levels. As of recent, I guess Thursday, last I checked, my nitrates were at like 19. And which is not, I guess, maybe a little, they run typically from probably 15 to 20 is kind of where they average. And then phosphate is like 0.05 to 0.1 typically. So some would probably say I'm on the higher side of things, but I think that's probably more average. I don't know. When people say high nitrates and then they say like 10 or 15, I'm like, right. I don't know. That's not high to me. More like 30 is maybe getting high. But
it's just watch your tank, see how things are doing, and maybe it's good for your tank, right? But,
right, exactly.
Poor Man's Reef was asking, can we still buy the aqua lifter pumps for the hang on back? Are you aware?
Hanging back overflows. Yeah. I don't know. Aqua lifter pumps for what? Hang on back overflows. I'm not sure. because I just have the one hang on back on the Nano, the Aquamax, and it came with whatever pumps in it. So I don't know. I don't know, poor man. What
Right.
you asking?
Well, Peter was saying that he thought they were discontinued.
Oh,
Or I mean, Macy's daddy. Sorry, but so then that's actually pretty good for the volume of fish that you have in that tank. What are you currently
yeah.
using to light the corals in the tank and keep the anemones happy? Talk walk
As
us
you
through
can see,
your lights up there.
yeah, as you can see, those it's a panel of reef breeders, the V2 Photon. I think that's like the 48-inch one. And then I have T5s I'm running on either side of it. So two T5 bulbs, and it's the ATI Blue Plus. And so
Oh,
as
you
you can
got
see,
them. You
the
got them
light,
quite a distance.
ha, yeah, I do. They're like 25 inches off the tank, off the surface of the water. So pretty high. I know, once again, most people probably keep them a lot lower. But I take that cue from Adam at Battle Corals, who also runs reef breeders, and he runs his super high off the water, because at least I found I can get max out the intensity, like the spectrums, because it doesn't for the reef breeders, at least on my version. Maybe there's a version on they have an app version now, but mine are a little older to where you can't. I think the Ecotech, like you can adjust like the color sliders, but then you can also adjust the main like intensity of everything. And with these, you can only adjust the individual colors. So I wanted to essentially max out my blue and my violet. And to be able to do that, I had to lift them way off the surface level if I wanted to like really brighten them up. So anyway, that's why I did that. And I see great results. I've actually, I think, seen better results since doing that.
Yeah, it looks like
So
your
that's all I'm
corals
running.
have pretty good growth in there. They don't look like they're stunted or shrinking. I've seen your tank in person a few times, and everything looks really healthy and vibrant. How's the par in that tank then, with the distance that you're at?
Well, that's the other thing with the distance. I'm still my blues. I have two blue channels and a violet channel, and those are at 100%, and the whites are at like 60 or 70%. And then with the T5s on, and so with all that running, the kind of high noon I call it, I'm getting like 350 at the surface, and like close to 150 to 200 at the sand bed, depending where it's at. So even at that high above the water, I'm still pushing a ton of par. So if you imagined if I lowered them anymore, like I'd essentially be baking my corals, or I'd have to turn the lights way down, which I didn't really like. So
Is there a particular target range you're looking at to keep the anemones or the corals, or I mean, what is your focus for pars in your tank?
tip typically, I guess once again, I feel like I'm in that kind of that reef tank average where I'm shooting for that kind of 350 near the top and 150 at the bottom. I think maybe I shoot higher than some at the bottom. I know a lot of people will, excuse me, I've been drinking that seltzer water, makes me burpy. Um, uh, that those that keep like LPS and stuff or ZOAs, they tend to like lower par, 100 or whatever, but I tend to kind of give them a little more at that 150 range. And I find that most still do well. I mean, there's some I got to be a little careful on, but so anyway, yeah, that 350 near the top. The anemones, the mags specifically, they'll take a ton of light. If I gave them more, they would take it. Mags will take a ton of light. The bubble tips are fine. You can see they're near the top, but they kind of, move where they want to be. So I have some that are in that 200 range, that some are, getting baked at the 300 range. I don't know. I guess that's what's interesting about anemones. They get to choose where they want to be. And could you imagine, like I've thought about this, could you imagine if all your coral could move and walk to where like it thought the ideal spot was, like we say anemones do? Like where would all your coral
It
end up?
would be the worst. I did that in a roundabout way. I did a rookie move, and I put GSP and
Yeah.
closed on my main rocks in my reef tank.
Yeah.
And in a roundabout way, they moved. That's just called encroachment and wild growth. So I've
Yeah.
been in a campaign to sterilize some rocks and reclaim those reclaim those areas. And um, yeah, so it's
True.
interesting, when you're curating your reef experience, you bring up a good point. Whether I'm going to have anemones or a type of coral, thinking about the future, right? It's great to be
Right.
caught up in the here and now and stick a lot of corals on the rocks. And if you think about what is this going to look like, 2 years from now when it grows out, it's hard to envision that at times, and it's been a struggle
For
point
sure.
for me, and it's something I've definitely learned a lot about, because here I am pulling stuff off the rocks because I don't know what to do with it. It's threatening to kill other
Exactly.
corals that honestly we don't hold them all in the same high regard, but it's definitely a
Right.
learning journey. So
Yeah, I think all newish reefers do that. At least my experience was the same. Like, you fill your rock work up with all these little plugs, and then things start to grow as they should. You get excited, and then you're like, oh crap, these things really do grow. And then they grow on each other, and then they don't, work well together. Somebody stings
yeah,
the other one, and oh yeah.
well,
I think those
it
that
doesn't
have been doing this a while probably see some of these new tanks and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's gonna be a mess later. You're gonna have fun fixing
yeah,
that, moving that stuff
because it
around."
doesn't make for great Instagram pictures when your stuff is all spread out 12 inches apart,
Right,
right?
yeah. I know. Totally. I
But
get
that's
that.
okay. So talk to me a little bit about, like, let's talk about successes and failures, right? So one of the things I wanted to keep focused on in the show was, yeah, let's talk about the good because we always like to present our best sides, and then let's honestly
Of
talk about
course.
the bad too, right? Because as
What?
sure as
I
I'm
don't have
sitting
any
here,
bad.
I've screwed up just as much as I've maybe been successful at. So, what would you
Oh
say? Let's
yeah.
start with successes. Start on the positive notes. Like, what are some of the things that, um, and successes are measured by your own standard, right? So it could be a
Right.
personal best for you. None of this, what we're talking about today, is comparing your tank against anybody else's tank. There is no finish line here, right? So, but for you
True.
personally, what are some of the things that you're happy about, and got you excited?
Well, successes, I guess, for a while, it's reef tank related, but the phytoplankton, that was a real enigma. I can't talk. Problem for me. Let me just say that out the gate. Like, it seems like such a super simple thing, which it is, but for whatever reason, I struggled so hard in the beginning, and so I kind of set out to like make phytoplankton like it wasn't going to beat me. So I finally feel like I got a handle on it. And so I'm excited about that. I feel like I got a good method down. Like, it's very repeatable. I mean, if people wanted to do the same thing I'm doing, I really believe that they could do it and be successful. So I'm excited about that, I've kind of figured that out for myself, and I feel like I can share it with others, which I'm huge into this hobby, like sharing the knowledge and just sharing everything about it. So that's a success. I think tank wise success, I feel like uh, give me enough time with a certain tank and I'll be successful. There'll be plenty of failures along the way because I'm learning how to be successful with that certain tank. So I guess for any of you that are watching that are newer, like, just know that, like, stick with it, give it enough time, and like learn and take
Determination.
advice. And yeah, to be calculated, figure things out. Like, you'll be successful, like, you will you have some failures and upsets along the way? Oh yeah. um, I had plenty of times where I really did want to throw in the towel. There was at one point where I just wanted to quit because I was so frustrated with some of my failures, just having things die, having equipment malfunctions, things like that, setbacks with certain, having my ATO drain into my tank and precipitate everything, having the power shut off and not have a backup plan, and having floods, and um, putting corals next to each other that shouldn't be next to each other probably, and watching one or two die, things like that. Definitely, I've had to go through as well. So
Yeah, and so
successes,
some
yeah,
some
those,
people would call those failures, and other people would call them learning experiences, right?
right. And so I guess, failures, you could say those are, like I said, I guess some of the quote unquote failures, but yeah, they're learning experiences. I wouldn't be where I am with my reef tanks and what I'm doing without having, learned some of that in advance. I think there's only so much you can learn through, reading and others' experiences, which really gives you good guidance and path. But sometimes you got to figure this stuff out on your own. Like, it sucks, but I think that's just the way of life sometimes.
Yeah, failures can indicate that you are actually trying something, right?
Right, right. And I call them, I call a lot of things calculated risks. If I'm going to do something with my tanks, or I really try to plan and research it out and take in opinions and cross-check things, and then be prepared for, the risks that might be ahead, whatever it is I might be doing, whether I'm going to change from calcing the ATO to a doser, or new equipment, or new animals in the system, all of those things, think through, and I don't know, that helps a lot. So I call it a calculated risk.
Nice. So I picked up on two things. We haven't forgot about CC Reef Keeper's question on your Fido, but
Yeah,
let's walk over to we talked about it right at the beginning of the stream, the unfortunate circumstances for Paul and losing multiple days of power. He's already suffered losses in his tanks. You've mentioned
yeah,
power outages and your siphon
yeah.
things like that. Um, Personally, for me, I've been just so extremely lucky, and I don't think I've suffered more than a 20-minute power outage in the last couple of years that I've had my tank. I know I'm skating on thin ice. I'm working on a power backup plan myself. And honestly, my ad hoc power backup plan is like a 5,000 watt uh, pure sine wave inverter that I'm going to hook up to my car while I'm in the middle of building, a battery backup system with an automatic failover. But that isn't done yet. So if the power goes out tomorrow, I'm scrambling to run my car. And let's talk a little bit about your experiences with power outages and where you're at and what your plan is.
Well, so yeah, I was that guy that I got into this and never considered that the power would go out. Like, it was just never a thought for me. And then, I don't know, a couple years down the road of having a tank, never losing power, like, I don't know, it got brought up somewhere. Maybe somebody mentioned something, and it dawned on me. I was like, man, what if I were to lose power to
Because
all of this? Like, what would happen?
I
Like,
mean,
you just don't think
uh,
about that. So,
it's reasonable when
uh,
you're starting up a new reef tank. I mean, of course, there's the exceptional people that they've got it all figured out, right? Those
right,
OCD people that I kind of just go,
like,
I'm not worthy
right,
to. But it's not the first thing on your mind when you're standing up a new tank and you're just throwing some dry rock in the water and you got a couple fish. Who's thinking about a backup plan, right? I mean, some are, but
right.
be fair, it's most aren't.
No,
And now 2 years later, I mean, I'm sitting here with this elaborate setup that I'm like, oh, I need a backup plan. And then,
right,
as you're
because
alluding to,
it isn't a problem until it's a problem. And so I went a long time going, oh yeah, I should do something about that. I should do something about that. Kind of like, well, it'll be okay. I kept dancing around it, and then so I never did. And then one day I lost power, and I had gallons of water on my floor in a mess. And then guess what? I lost power 3 times in 30 days. If you would believe that. I have not lost power at this apartment in like 4 years since I've lived here. And then a year ago, I lost power 3 times in 30 days. I didn't have a backup. And each time my system flooded, I flooded the floors. I had precipitation from the ATO dumping all of its contents into the tank. Luckily, I didn't suffer many coral losses. I did suffer a few fish losses. I think one too many times of the kelp probably poisoned them and made them sick. They didn't live anyway. So, but I didn't lose much coral. Obviously, every time that happened, it was a tank setback. Stability was messed up, and corals just didn't grow very well, even though they lived. So I finally, after all of that, was like, dude, you need to do something. You need a plan, because if this happens again, I would have quit, because it was such a mess, such a headache. It was so devastating to have to deal with every time. So I finally uh, made a battery backup. So that's what I run just my return pump off of now. I bought a Life PO battery, or a lithium, whatever, phosphate. Is that what they are?
lithium,
Type battery.
yeah, lithium ion phosphate. Yep.
Yeah, I bought one of those. I did the research. I looked up a lot of different things, read, what other people are doing, how they're doing it. I asked Rob here. He's very smart about that stuff. He helped me put it together. I know Jim Telegram also has some understanding of that. I think I asked him a couple questions on that as well. So yeah, I just bought all the parts off Amazon. The battery, I bought an inverter, the wires, a simple tackle box that we retrofitted to fit everything, and just wired it up, and with a charger, so it's kind of on a continuous charge. So we set it up so that only my return pump right now runs off of it, so it draws less than it charges. I'm not explaining that very well, but essentially it's always running on the battery, and so the pump never pulls more than the battery is going to use and get recharged. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
your rate of discharge doesn't exceed your C rate for your charge rate.
Perfect. See, Rob is smart. He knows how to talk that kind of language.
Are you able to show that?
Oh, yeah, I'll try here. Audience, I'm afraid to touch buttons and switch the camera because sometimes it gets funky. So I'm going to try to show you on the front camera. So that's why I keep doing things like this. Anyway, so boom, there you have it. See that box? Battery backup. What you see there is the charger, showing that it's being charged right now. And so hold on, let me also I have this interface that
You're touching things, Anthony.
isn't on, but boom. Oh, sorry, hold on, friends. I'm gonna open this up and see if we can't take a peek inside without making a mess. Boom. Okay, you see that?
Yeah, fairly
Battery,
simple
inverter, wires, yeah, and it's just switcheroo, housed in the box, and then my return pump is just plugged into the inverter.
If you don't mind sharing, how much do you have into that?
Let me think here for a second. I want to say, all said and done, like maybe $400.
Okay, and
the battery, the battery is the biggest cost, and that's going to vary on your size of your system, because that's going to vary on the size of the battery and what you're trying to run on that battery. So if you're trying to run a lot of things, you're probably going to want a bigger, like, milliamp battery, so that'll cost you more. But that was the biggest cost, was the battery itself, and then the inverter and charger and all the other kind of accessories weren't as big of a deal.
How many hours does that buy you figure?
I would say if the system is completely like just running on the battery and it's not being charged, I easily get 2. And I think I could squeeze out closer to 3, maybe 4. I've never actually tested the full, but I've definitely tested a few hours, which would give me enough time to, say, get home if I'm somewhere, or if I'm already home, just make some small adjustments if I needed to. If the power is going to be out longer, I should say. But
right. And you're not currently running any controllers on your tanks, correct?
No, I am controller free, other than my doser. I guess that's as controlled as I get. Yep. But otherwise, I hand dose stuff if I need to. Hand test everything. I don't have probes or anything like that, other than a thermometer to check the temp.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about Fido and how you use that for your tanks. There, CC Reefkeeper earlier asked about your Fido tanks in particular.
So CC, I think he asked if I liked the tanks, how they're working out initially, and I like the tanks. They work out well. The system from Poseidon, if you were to buy it like this as is, it comes with the bags. And I chose not to use the bags after a little while. I just didn't like the circulation, and I felt like they were more problematic for my success than they were for being successful. So I ditched the bags and just used the glass jars, and it works out quite well. So I like them. I like the ease. I know you can do it for a lot cheaper other ways. Like you can, honestly, there's a CC Reef Keeper. I don't know if you're still here, but if you are interested, and I guess anybody that's here interested in making a setup, like if you just want to DIY this type of glass jar with the lights, the cap, and all of that, I know somebody that sourced all the parts and built their own that looks almost exactly like this and did it for like half the price. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's available. Like, so I can give you guys, if anybody's interested, that info if they don't want to go to Poseidon and pay their price and want to pay less price, but you're gonna have to build it yourself. So that's what you got to weigh. Do I want to pay more and have it already built, or pay less and build it myself? So that's your options. But I like it. I like the glass. I like the size. I would use them again, except I would probably just build my own jars because it's like literally about half the price. And I like do it yourself type stuff.
Oh, and we lost the other thing again. There you go.
Sorry,
Yeah, that's
I
perfect.
pushed buttons.
No, like I said, this wouldn't be a premiere unless we had some hiccups there. Like my background,
there.
less background,
Let me do this.
and all the other things where we didn't anticipate it. So, but I promise
So
you,
hopefully
I
that
promise you, we'll get a little more polished as time goes on.
Hopefully that answers the question, CC. If I like them, I do. And so yeah, I also have Copipods going on this shelf, 3 different species, and I'm doing live baby brine shrimp down here as well that I made my own little setup for DIY.
Oh, very cool. So that's something you
What?
feed to both tanks? Oh, that was CC. He was still here. He was letting you know that he'd be interested in that DIY version.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely help you out with that information. But yeah, I'm doing, I feed the Copipods and baby brine to, yeah, both tanks.
Yeah. So Anthony's contact information as well as Paul's again will be in the description of the chat from the video after the live stream is over. So talk.
Yeah, I'm what? Go ahead.
Another reefer that I admire and look up to has often talked about and brought up the notion of reefing superpowers, right? And I would like to know, in your opinion, what is your reefing superpower? You know, what kind of life experience or things that you're good at that have helped you be successful in the hobby and that you would be something that you feel that would contribute positively to somebody else's experience in reefing. Because we all have something. It doesn't have to be something epic like leaping over long peninsula tanks in a single bound or anything like that. But simple life experiences, whether extraordinary or not, can often make a difference in anybody's experience.
Right. Let's see. Well, I guess I'd like to believe that I have an ability to look at the bigger picture, so to speak. I don't know. Sometimes I think we get stuck in I'm only gonna like look at lights in the spectrum, or I don't know. I feel like we get stuck like in like with blinders on sometimes and forget to like look at the bigger picture of the whole system together and how all that works. And sometimes I feel like I do that, and maybe that's why I take more calculated risks, I call them, because I've looked at a bigger picture. Like say I'm keeping 3 different species of clownfish, right? That people like would say that's a big no-no. I'm keeping 6 ocellaris, 4 spot cinctus, and 2 lightning maroons together. And so I've had them together over a year now. They've been a family over a year together, and they live in harmony. They have their little, where they work out their issues, who's boss and who's not, and then they shake and shiver at each other. But I haven't had any deaths. I don't have any serious fighting. And I think was able to do that maybe because I looked at the bigger picture of what would it really look like to keep these things together? Is it possible? Like how you do all that? I don't know if that makes sense as a superpower, sure. But like, I think I can be helpful to others in that way, in maybe seeing something that they don't see right away. Like they're talking about something and wanting to do something and looking at it, and maybe I have a different perspective than them that can be helpful, I guess.
I mean, perspective is a filter for knowledge, right? I mean, we can be presented with the same, two people could be presented with the same information and two completely different conclusions have gotten out of that. I think perspective is important, and it is something that can contribute to good or bad experiences. So as we're coming up on the hour here, it's going to be my goal to keep these under an hour. Again, I really appreciate those of you who stuck through this brutal exercise. Again, we're going to work on the
Hey, it
power.
wasn't that bad.
And as we go through different guests, again, we're going to have the opportunity to invite people on here from the chat eventually, and as well as if you want to just appear on the stream and join in the conversation, look for the Canvas link in the description after the video. But let's talk about real quick. Are there any types of methods or equipment or any near-term future plans that you have for your tank? Like what's any next steps for you?
Right now, you know, next steps for this guy, I really just want to, I guess, maintain and grow the things that I have. You know what I mean? Like my tanks are full. Rob knows this. He's seen them in person, up close. Like they're like literally full. Like as much as I'd like to add another piece of coral here or there, like in the long run, I know that it'll grow, or at least I hope it would grow. That's the goal, right? Or my other coral would grow around it, and it wouldn't do as well as it could. So I've stopped adding new coral. Obviously, fish probably wouldn't be a wise idea anyway either, seeing I have so many. So I'm really focused on, I guess, the microbiome. That's a kind of a big deal for me that I try to push, that I don't think a lot of people spend enough time on. I think they spend more time on other things, and if they spent more time focusing and learning, researching about the microbiome, how phytoplankton, zooplankton, all of that stuff works together, that it can be, not that you can't have a healthy tank without it. Like, I mean, I'm not saying crazy stuff like that, but like, I just believe it can make a difference maybe. So anyway, that's my next step, I guess, is I'm just really focusing on the microbiomes and taking care of the tanks to see the coral really thrive and be its best, color, growth, all of that. So that's, I don't know. And I guess that's probably all of our focuses.
Yeah. Are you considering like using a place like Aquabiomics? I know does, like a bacterial type test
Right.
where kind of like ATI does for an ICP test. This would be kind of speaks to the microbiome. Maybe consider doing any of that to kind of benchmark, something in time.
I've considered the aquabiomics test a few different times. I've just, I guess, been slow to pull the trigger. I guess it's an investment, like anything, to invest in doing that test and seeing what's what. I know, like I know I guess I know a little about the test. I mean, I've researched it, and I've also researched what others say about the testing in general, just its validity and how well it works, or what I mean, just how all of that stuff goes together. So I'm kind of up in the air about it yet, but I'd like to maybe at some point, just because of my nerdy interest in how all this works.
That's awesome.
Together.
Well, I really appreciate your rolling with this on the last moment. Like I said, Anthony was originally supposed to just be here for moral support and talking with Paul and walking him through his experience and whatnot. But this is why we do these things, so we can move forward and still have a successful stream, I hope. Really appreciate your time, Anthony. I really sincerely appreciate everybody here that's hung out for the duration. This will again be a monthly live stream, and we'll have a spotlight reefer, another guest or two, and just get as many faces out there. And I want people to meet each other and understand that Anthony's got a great example here of less is more. No controllers, a very simple and effective approach to. He's got some beautiful tanks going on. He's doing some interesting things, and he's just a regular reefer, just like you and me. So.
Yep. Just a regular old guy.
Yeah. Some of us are at the beginning of our journey. Some of us are, farther along. But everybody has something interesting going on. Everybody has something to learn, and everybody has a story to tell. So that's what I want to take away from here. We'll work on things as we go along, Anthony, again, appreciate your time so much. And I hope everybody has a great day. Look back for the next posting of the live stream. We have a very interesting guest that's going to bring her own story. We have a female spotlight reefer next month in July, and I'm looking forward to telling her story. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Fantastic. See ya.